In the last 7 days, America has seen 3 mass shootings stretching across this country: Laguna Woods, California; Dallas, Texas; and Buffalo, New York. Innocent lives lost due to heinous acts of violence fueled by hate towards a specific ethnicity or race. We have seen too many of these acts in this country. There have been 25 in the last 10 years and 5 in the last 5 months. But how do we prevent acts of violence like this in the future? Welcome to episode 50 of Counterthought. We have seen more than 25 mass shootings in the last 10 years. And by mass shootings, I'm not talking about the technical definition of just 4 or more people shot during one shooting. I am talking about, like, that could happen um, in gang violence or something similar to that. I'm talking about these sporadic, random acts of violence against innocent individuals who are just going about their day, whether it be in a grocery store or a church or a school or a hair salon or a nail salon or, you know, just a building, just going about their business and having, nothing to do with the shooter. Just surprised and caught off guard and attacked by a shooter. That is how I am defining mass shootings. And there have been 25 of those or more in the last 10 years. This past week, we saw 3, 2 just this past weekend. 10 dead in Buffalo, New York, 3 additional people shot. Each one of the 10 dead were Black Americans. And in the in the manifesto found of that shooter, I'm not going to say his name. He's an 18-year-old, I'm going to say kid, but not going to say his name. He actually said that if he was going to make it out of that supermarket, that was his goal. He wanted to make it out of that supermarket. He wanted to make it out of that supermarket and continue shooting more Black Americans in that Buffalo neighborhood. He had gone and done reconnaissance work to figure out where were the best locations within Buffalo, and he specifically identified that supermarket and other neighborhoods around that supermarket to kill as many Black Americans as he possibly could. Thankfully, he did not get out of that supermarket. He is currently in jail in a paper jumpsuit. It means he's like on suicide watch. They do not want him to take his own life because they want to get to the bottom and prosecute this 18-year-old. But he had a 150 plus page manifesto, and his ideology was rooted in this white replacement ideology. This ideology where one believes that as immigrants and other individuals come into this country, and whether they actually, I guess you don't even have to be an immigrant, but if you are non-white, that you are seen as trying to replace whites. So therefore, as a white man, this 18-year-old believes that he needs to eliminate minorities, eliminate non-whites from being in this country so that whites reign supreme. In Laguna Woods, California, at a Taiwanese church, a man who was attending a luncheon there opened fire, and it is said is because he hates the Taiwanese because he does not want Taiwan to be separate from China. A 68-year-old man opened fire. The congregation that was at this luncheon at the church a doctor was able to tackle him to the ground, wrestle the gun away from him, and then others were able to join in and hogtie the shooter, and he is now arrested and pending trial. In Dallas, Texas, at a Korean salon, a man walked in and said to open and shot about 20 shots, hit 3 women, all Korean. None of them died, thankfully, but he is being charged with aggravated assault. I mean, I'd like to see him get more than that because he act, but we'll see how the trial plays out. And then the New York City Subway, just going back into April of last month. This man, that man, has videos online on YouTube just filled with hate, filled with racism. And then you have Waukesha, Wisconsin. Now, that was not a shooting, but it did the equivalent damage. A man driving an SUV through a Christmas parade and killing multiple people, children and adults. And he is found to be racist as well. So there is this hate that is fueling these heinous acts of violence. But how do we stop future attacks such as these? Like I said, there have been more than 25 in the last 10 years. Not all of them are based upon race in the last 10 years. These last 5 are, these last 3 and 4 for sure. It's documented. But the quick response, the initial response, especially if you're listening to politicians, is, oh, we have to do more gun control. That's not the answer. And then the secondary response is, after gun control is, oh, well, we're going to blame somebody to get some kind of political gain for ourselves. Like for Buffalo, New York, you have all of these people coming out on the left and even a few on the right that are, well, Liz Cheney, she's not on the right. She might as well just be out of the GOP. But blaming like mainstream Republicans or Republican pundits on television for fueling on this 18-year-old's belief in this ideology. Well, that is reckless and that is doing more damage. If you are serious about actually stopping future actions like this, and as I've just talked about, these were all fueled by hate. Division creates hate, or hate creates division. So if you are being serious about wanting to stop future actions, then just saying things for political gain for yourself or your party is of no benefit. You need to just keep your mouth shut because you're just going to make things worse and you are not a serious person about actually solving this problem. But the initial talking point is, oh, guns, we got another thing for guns. We got to do more gun control. That's not a serious argument. A lot of these more recent shootings, there's documentation online that would show, or previous run-ins with law enforcement that would be huge red flags to say, hey, we should have been able to keep better eyes on this person if they were in our custody and then were put on parole or something like that, or their time in jail ended and they were back out into society. Or if they had posted things online, there should be way better ways for social media companies, let's say, to communicate to law enforcement like, hey, we're flagging this person, look at the content that they're posting. But just saying gun control and more gun laws is not going to do the problem. These shootings are happening in states where there are hundreds of gun control laws. I mean, any kind of crime, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what laws you have in place. A crime is a crime because you're breaking the laws. So if someone wants to commit an act of violence using a gun, they're going to find a way to get a gun. That should be evident. So this problem goes well beyond guns. Guns are not the problem. The problem is the heart and the minds of these individuals. Now, we cannot prevent every act of violence, that is for sure. Evil is always going to be in this world. Evil has been in this world since the dawn of time. But we need to focus on what we can do to prevent as many as possible. And we need to focus, again, on the heart and the mind of these individuals. We need to try to figure out what happens or what is happening in this spectrum of hate, of ideologies that just allows these ideologies and that hate just to fester. We need to figure out why that is happening and then what we can do, mental health treatments, um, what is the answer? Mental health programs, okay, well, if we have mental health programs, how do we get these individuals identified to then get them into these mental health programs? Do we need to expect more action from social media companies to, be flagging content that is posted that is hateful content? And not I don't mean angry posts or something like that. I mean, true threats, that level. Do we need to, um, rely on family members and friends to self-report? I'm not I'm not gonna go as far, like I said, this does not involve guns, so I'm not getting into red flag laws for guns or anything like that. I don't know enough about that. That's kind of a slippery slope. That's my understanding. But when it comes to the individual, to their heart and to their mind, we as the people, their neighbors, their family, their friends need to be waving our hands and alerting authorities if we are suspicious or worried that, they could be dangerous to themselves and to others. So, what is the cause of these problems? Is it absent fathers? Is it um, domestic abuse? Is it neglect? Is it an upbringing of violence, like violence in the home? Is it uh, hate in the home? Is it the culture that these people are growing up in? Is it something that happened in their life and then it just triggered something and, kind of just broke them and then they never sought the help that they were supposed to seek? And then it's just festered and grown and grown and grown to the point to where they felt like they can no longer control it. And then they go out and um, commit these heinous acts of violence, taking innocent lives. What can we change within our culture, within our society to prevent this as many times as possible from happening? Is it a lack of religion? Is it a lack of love? Is it a lack of community, friends, family, coworkers? What is causing this hate? Obviously, we have we are fighting a spiritual war against Satan, against the devil. And Satan loves to get you into isolation. Loves to get you into isolation and work on you and twist your thoughts, twist your beliefs, and change your thinking to evil, to let evil seep in and creep in. And when you are isolated, you don't stand a chance. So maybe that is one way that we tackle this. Maybe that is one way we tackle these mental health issues. The hate is to be around people. If you keep to yourself, if you're like a recluse and you know, just stay in isolation, unless you go on social media, no one is going to know what is actually festering within that house over there, within that boy's house, the 18-year-old's house that led him to go do what he wanted to do to believe the ideology of that white replacement. No one's going to know what led the New York City subway guy. I mean, he was on YouTube, yes, so should have done more, I feel like there. And maybe that we do need to expect that from social media companies in addition to these root causes, like as a second uh, safety net or catch all. But if there were no posts on YouTube, because obviously those did not work, but if you're in isolation, no one's going to know what's going on within that man's mind and within his house to be able to intervene and prevent something like the New York City subway shooting from happening. Same thing with the other shootings that happened in this past week out there in Laguna Woods in California, and then in Dallas, Texas, and then the man in Wisconsin driving that SUV into the parade crowd. So there's a severe stain, a huge stain in the fabric of our culture, of our society, that we need to clean up in order to prevent more things like this from happening. We need to spend more time in community. We need to raise our hand, see something, say something. We need to love one another. We need to try to rid our society of this division, of this hate, and see one another as individuals, as human beings, and not as threats, not as the enemy. That is what the enemy wants us to see, wants to see division, hate, wants to see us turn against our fellow man or fellow woman and act against them, cause harm to them, whether that is physical or emotional, mental. Taking an innocent life, that is the worst. Those 10 individuals, those 10 Black Americans in Buffalo, New York, did not expect anything like that when they went to the grocery store. One of the men that died, he was there to pick up the birthday cake for his son's 3-year-old birthday. One of the women that was shot and killed there goes and visits her husband, I believe, daily in a nursing home to care for him. These are tragic stories, and we need to, as a society, figure out what we can do to spread love to one another so that we can reach as many people as possible. And hopefully, that is one way we can intervene, whether we end up knowing whether we know what we did or not, but intervene and shine the light into the darkness of the minds of these people who are filled with hate and rage and want to cause harm to other individuals. This goes beyond guns, well beyond guns. We need to address the heart and the mind of every individual and make sure that we are loving one another, speaking up if we see something, getting involved. These are the things that we need to do. It takes a village. It's going to take community. It's going to take purposeful effort. But just in 7 days, more than 10 lives have been lost, innocent lives, because of hate-filled acts of violence against people who do not deserve it. Now, moving beyond us as individuals and what we can do, what are some of the things that from the structures we currently have in place today, that we can do to also intervene and prevent acts like these from happening? I think one thing that we can do is social media. Social media needs to be notifying law enforcement when they see these acts of violence, or not susceptibility, but the potential based on posts, based on anger and threats directed towards individuals or groups of individuals online. And then we need to make sure that the police and law enforcement have the resources that they need to be able to gather that information and act upon that information that is given to them, so that it is not just a stack on a desk. We need to be able to receive the information. Law enforcement needs to be able to receive the information. They need to be able to process that information. They need to be able to act upon that information. So they're going to need, the resources to do that. Social media needs to do more. It is not their fault for people, they're not responsible for those who posted stuff online and it wasn't seen, soon enough or reported. It does not fall in the feed or the hands of these social media companies. But we need to empower these social media companies, I believe, to report to law enforcement. I mean, that just makes sense. I don't know everything that would be involved in that, like from right to privacy or things like that. But I think we need to take a hard look at, being able to use the tools that we have in order to prevent acts of violence like this. If it comes up to some constitutionality argument, let's have that argument. Let's have that discussion. But we have the tools available to monitor individuals, or, to review what individuals post online if their stuff is public, I mean, it is out there for public consumption, so I don't really see, like, there be any kind of right to privacy issue, but if there is something like that, we can have that discussion. But we I don't feel like we can just sit back and let stuff like this continue to happen and, just put our hands up in the air and say, "Oh, well, we'll just kinda let it fix itself," because that is not happening. It's, again, 25 plus shootings in the last 10 years, and 10 years is only 2012. I mean, there are multiple shootings pre-2012. The first one, obviously, that really, like, shook the country. I was in, I think, 7th grade, was Columbine. I believe that was 1998. So we're talking about, what, in the last for 24 years now, acts mass shootings like this have been going on. I'm here in Orlando. The Pulse nightclub shooting, that was, I think, in 2016, so already 6 years ago. That was an attack at a gay club here in Orlando. I believe it was 47 people, maybe 49, I'm sorry if I get that wrong, were killed in that shooting. Then you have numerous high school shootings that have happened as well over these last 24 years. And we have the ability now, I believe, through social media, but we have to give them the green light. We have to give law enforcement the resources to take on those caseloads and to intervene. And then when if someone does, then we need to also have the resources available. If someone does need to have, like, a psychiatric evaluation, we need to have the mental health resources, the counselors, the hospitals, um, the treatment centers to be able to support, the result of intervening, the intervention of law enforcement. Mental health counseling needs to be funded to be able to to examine these individuals. And then, if it is necessary, or if someone through whatever kind of previous actions is in jail, we need to take a hard look at what what uh, what they did to get there. Obviously the crime that put them in jail. Maybe go back and look at what they were posting online before that, their actions within jail, like, and really consider. Don't just give, like, an easy early release and and put them on probation, on parole. We've seen recently with this soft on crime, these soft on crime DAs that, these repeat offenders, the recidivism is continuing to increase and just go through the roof because the jails are crowded and they're just releasing people early, even though the time has not been served and the lessons have not been learned. And it seems like the screenings have not they're not passing any kind of screening or anything like that that says they're fit to go back into society. So we need to empower these industries, these organizations, these companies to be able to do what they need to do to be proactive and preventative to prevent as many future shootings as possible, in my opinion. And if there are any types of infringement on the laws, let's have those conversations and see where that goes. But we need to put these innocent people first. And then, in addition to the resources with law enforcement, mental health, um, jails, and everything, and social media companies or what have you, tech companies, I believe, you know, we also have to work on the soul and the hearts and the minds of these individuals, as I said in the first half of this episode. So it needs to be a combination. It needs to be utilizing the structures that we have in place in this country. And then also, at the same time, looking and working on the hearts and the minds of every individual, not just individuals who are already hurt and hurting, but every individual. So fewer and fewer people go down these paths that lead them to do actions like we have seen over these past 7 days, within the past 5 months, within the past 10 years, within the past 24 years. There is so much more that we can do as a country, as a society, as a culture to limit the number of mass shootings that occur. We won't stop all of them. We will not stop all of them. That is the only way that will happen is through divine intervention from our Lord Almighty. But we as Americans need to step in, step up, and do what we can do to protect the innocent lives of our fellow Americans and improve the lives of our fellow Americans to prevent any more heinous acts like these from occurring. Thank you for watching this episode of Counterthought. Please click on one of these two episodes and also click the logo down here in the corner to subscribe to the channel. And remember to like this video. Thank you.